our Ansible try to reach to an IP address. For example, I don't know what's IP address. Sorry. So this IP address does not exist in our VPC, that is 10.10.0.0/16. So what the EC2 instance is going to do is going to look in the row table, right? And here it will look, and then it will see that any destination, right? This one is means all the IP addresses. So any IP address that this EC2 instance in this subnet that exists within these row tables, right? If any EC2 instance want to access to any IP address that is not in this range, right? In our case, this IP address, take it to the NAT, right? So then AWS will take this instance to the NAT. This is our NAT. Then the NAT, this EC2 instance will ask the NAT, please can you take me to the outside? Then the NAT will try to go to the outside. So it will go and look in the public route table, because this NAT it is in the public subnet 1, and this public subnet 1 is reside in the public route table. It is here, the public subnet 1. Right? Then it will go to the route table and will check if any traffic that will go to the outside, means the internet, go to the internet gateway. So the NAT will take that request to the internet gateway, and then to this IP address that reside in the internet. So this is how the NAT work. So if everything works properly, now the ping must work. Why I have enabled the NAT? Because I have two situations that forced me to use the NAT. The first thing is because Ansible, I wanted to be able to retrieve the artifact from our bucket, because everything in AWS is just IPE, right? So once I want to retrieve the artifact that is stored in S3 bucket, so I must to call an IPE. And to call it, I use internet. You will tell me why you did not use VPC endpoints instead. And someone of you who is not knowing what is VPC endpoint, he will tell me why you will need internet as long as S3 reside in the same region as your VPC. So we don't need internet to communicate with them. As I mentioned before, everything in AWS is they are API. So any service that want to communicate with another service, it need an API. And any call that one server make to the other server. For example, let me show you here. For example, in our case, if our Ansible want to call S3 buckets, it will need two things. The first thing is internet, and another thing is credentials to authenticate that request. So credentials. And from where I will have that credentials? If I am running this Ansible server in our AWS, I need to create a role for that EC2 instance, create a role, then give policies or permission to that role. Then once you will send a request to your S3 bucket, S3 bucket will look for your credentials, and if you have the permission to do that call, then it will allow you to retrieve that artifact. So I hope that is clear for you now. And I will answer the other ones who said why you didn't use only VPC. The VPC endpoints enable you to make a private connection between your 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 services within the AWS without you to publicly communicate with them. I will answer you by, but what if I use VPC endpoints here? How can I push the images that I will generate here in our Ansible server and push them to Docker Hub? So I think now it is clear for you why I have used the NAT and why I didn't use the VPC endpoint. If you are working only with things that will reside only within your AWS, so you can use VPC endpoint instead. But as long as that we must to communicate with the outside, so it's mandatory for us to use the NAT instead. So the thing that I'm going to do now is going to our Ansible server and go to security, actions, and modify IAM role and look for S3 EC2 S3 read only role. Then save that. Right? And another thing you have to do is to install the code deploy agent. I have already gave you the instruction to install that. You have only to copy this and paste it in your terminal and execute them, and the AWS code deploy agent will be installed. So now let us jump to our Jenkins, right? But first let me come back here and then try to remove that file, that's the directory, ls there is no directory, and modify something here as well. And then push the changes to my GitHub.